quarters.
Sources say that the Polish destroyer Błyskawica had a mascot, a monkey. According to tales told by the sailors on board, this monkey was able to detect approaching airplanes before human eyes could see or ears could hear. It would even frantically point to the proper direction that the planes were approaching from. On the night of May 4th, 1942, the Błyskawica's defining heroic moment of World War II, it is unclear if this monkey was on duty, but I suspect that it was, because that night the anti-aircraft gunners on board the Błyskawica were ready, on a night when the German Blitz met Poland's lightning. What's up, folks? This is Steel. Welcome to History and Combat. Today I'm bringing you the Błyskawica, a Tier 7 Polish destroyer. It's a premium ship and earns 50% more EXP per match than any standard destroyer. And I'm here on Northern Lights in a Tier 7 battle. As far as the ship in-game is concerned, I would call it a gunboat with a small window of opportunity to stealth torp. Now, I am in no way, shape, or form an expert at driving this ship, not at all, but I do have a lot of fun in it. It's fleeting sometimes, but it is fun. I will say this, and for the people that own this ship already, I hope you agree. It's the kind of ship that, when you're in the middle of a match, you're questioning whether or not you should fire your guns or try for a torpedo run. And doing one hurts your ability to do the other. And that's because it has a spot distance of 7.5 kilometers stock and 8 kilometer torps. That gives you a half of a kilometer of leeway. And if battleships know that you're there, and they probably will because you've been firing your guns, they're really not going to give you an opportunity to hit an 8 kilometer torp. But I'm going to keep playing this ship though, even if it's just for the ×2s, because there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The Tier 5 Captain skill of Concealment will drop the spot distance down of this ship to about 6.7 kilometers. As you're watching this match, feel free to criticize my gameplay, because I'm going to tell you there's about 3 or 4 times I don't know what I'm going to do, fire or torp. So if you have any different conclusions about what you would have done or what I should have done, make a comment. I'd be interested to see what you have to say. But enough about that. This is History and Combat. So let's get into it. Late in September of 1935 and launched on October 1st, 1936, the Błyskawica was one of 2 Grom-class destroyers built for the Polish Navy by British shipbuilding company J. Samuel White out of Cowes, England. J. Samuel White won the bid to construct the Grom-class destroyers and endeavored to build some of the fastest and most heavily armed destroyers at the time. Both the Grom, meaning thunderclap, and the Błyskawica, meaning lightning, ended up being 1,975 standard tons with the ability of going 39 knots. Its armament consisted of 7 120mm, basically 4.7 inch, Bofors guns, 4 40mm Bofors AA guns, and 8 13.2mm machine guns, basically 50 cals. They were also equipped with 6 550mm, basically 21-inch torpedo tubes, and I believe they launched French torpedoes out of those tubes. Both the Grom and the Błyskawica were the pride of the Polish Navy at the time, and very formidable destroyers, perhaps not, if not the best destroyers in the Baltic. Foes and allies both had their eyes on these ships because of how valuable they were. Perhaps their value even exceeded that of the humble Polish Navy, and that's why they were the subject of something called the Peking Plan. The British idea to essentially evacuate these 2 ships plus a 3rd destroyer of a destroyer division that there's no way in my lifetime I will ever be able to pronounce. The plan was to evacuate these 3 ships to the UK before war started. Due to numerical superiority that the Germans had at sea and in the air, in the eyes of the British, these 2 ships were way too valuable to risk getting caught in the Baltic. As you can imagine, the Polish military command was highly skeptical of this plan at first. Marshal Edward Smigley-Ritz, which may be the most awesome name ever, was reluctant at first because he still had hopes in what was known as the Romanian bridgehead, where they were hoping that the Polish forces could hold out in the southeast of the country near the Romanian border, with the hope that they would be relieved by the French and British. And they would need these ships to escort supplies out of Poland. Nevertheless, in a controversial but wise decision, the order to put the Peking Plan in effect was signed on August 26, 1939, a day after the Polish-British Common Defense Pact was signed. Just 3 days later, on August 29th, the Blyskawica received the signal, Peking, 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 execute Peking. Immediately, the 3 destroyers departed for England. On their way, they actually encountered the Königsberg, but no shots were fired. The war hadn't started yet. The next day, the Germans invaded Poland. And it turned out that the Peking Plan was the right way to go, because all Polish ships not evacuated were either captured or sunk by the Germans. The first combat operations that the Blyskawica and the Gram were involved in was off the coast of Norway during the Norwegian campaign in May of 1940, where they were both involved in shelling German positions. The Blyskawica actually shot down 2 planes, but unfortunately an aerial bomb hit the Gram's torpedo launcher and split the ship in half. The German ground forces hated these ships, especially the Gram, because the Gram would stalk the Norwegian coastline, basically firing at anything that moved. Later that month, the Blyskawica moved on to be involved in the evacuation of Dunkirk. From May 27th to June 4th, 1940, the Blyskawica was patrolling, escorting ships, screening against German torpedo boats, rescuing sailors, and evacuees from sunken ships. In one occasion, she actually towed the British destroyer Greyhound for 4 hours and saved her from air attack. She later went on to patrol and convoy duties in the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, and she was one of the few ships able to keep up with the RMS Queen Mary. It's important to note that during this time frame, around 1941, the Blyskawica received a significant upgrade, making it a dual threat. Its 7 120mm Bofors guns were replaced with 8 4-inch Mark 16 dual-purpose guns, and all of her 50 caliber machine guns were replaced by 4 20mm anti-aircraft guns, making the Blyskawica an anti-aircraft beast. And she would need every single one of these guns, because upcoming in the spring of 1942 was the Blyskawica's defining moment in World War II, the defense of Cowes. On April 28th, the Blyskawica was back in Cowes, her birthplace, for a refit. German planes had made a hit and run on Cowes that day, nearly sinking the Blyskawica. But Captain Fracke spotted German recon planes, presumably taking photos, and thought that this was a precursor to a full-scale German aerial attack. But the Blyskawica was in a decommissioned state, meaning that most of her crew was on leave. Nevertheless, the captain applied to the British Admiralty to remain armed. Their answer was no. But Captain Frankie stayed true to his convictions, begged, borrowed, and stole as much ammunition as he could. And good thing that he did, because on May 4th, 1942, 160 German bombers came to destroy cows. The Blyskawica used its smoke generators to obscure the town and put its 8 4-inch guns to work. Forcing the German bombers higher and higher, the AA guns fired continuously through the night and into the morning, requiring buckets of seawater to be raised to cool the red-hot gun barrels. By the time the attack was over, 70 townspeople had died. But the townsfolk did believe that but for the ferocity of the Polish resistance on board the Blyskawica, the town would have been destroyed. They heralded the Blyskawica and Captain Frankie as the saviors of cows.
Engine boost deactivated.
After her refit, the Blyskawica went on to her normal operating duties, this time including dropping off and deploying some special operations units from the British. She continued to be a major thorn in the side of the Germans, all the way up until D-Day. On the morning of June 9, 1944, the Blyskawica was a member of an 8-ship patrol, all destroyers, 4 British, 2 Canadian, and 2 Polish. That morning they faced off against 4 German ships, 3 destroyers and 1 torpedo boat. The Blyskawica's orders were to protect the Normandy invasion fleet at all costs. The engagement became known as the Battle of Ushant, or the Battle of Brittany. Attacking from the west from the direction of Isle de Bats, the Germans hoped to have a successful hit-and-run attack against the vital troop and supply ships of the Normandy invasion. But fortunately for the Allies, the Blyskawica and the other members of the destroyer flotilla were there and spotted the Germans at 1 a.m. on radar. The two groups clashed several times during the night, and each time the Germans tried to attack, the destroyers were there to defend, dropping torpedoes and firing their guns. The Allied counterattacks were so fierce it actually forced the Germans into a minefield in hopes of escape. When it was all said and done, 2 German destroyers were at the bottom. This victory for the Allies effectively put to an end the Germans' efforts to navally interdict the Allied invasion fleet. The Normandy invasion could continue. During the course of her career, the Blyskawica logged 270,000 kilometers, escorted 83 convoys, damaged 3 U-boats, shot down 4 planes, and helped sink other ships. Today, the Blyskawica is a gorgeously maintained museum ship in Gdynia, Poland, and her legacy is forever memorialized by her fierce defense of an adopted home.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Feel free to like or comment, and if you're interested in seeing more content in the future, subscribe. My live stream is currently on Twitch at the URL you can see right there. And if you're interested in even more World of Warships videos, I highly recommend The Taste. The link is down below. Thanks again.